really feel something in our future, possibly in our lifetime, that is unlike anything these whole centuries, and as long as modern technology has been around, something we've never seen, a revelation. I'm willing to wager here, and I kind of like placing bets on, like, what do you think this reality is? Who do you think is behind the scenes? What do you think the causality is behind a lot of the predictable things that keep happening here, and the exploitation and the grief and just the fact no one can get through this life without some kind of turmoil or unpleasant thing that they wouldn't possibly choose for themselves. And I was really hoping this was a little bit more of a choose your own adventure. But it turns out it's not really. Like, there's the illusion of choice. And yeah, I have these different options. I can choose what ice cream I want. I can try to apply for a certain kind of job I want. But ultimately, the job you get is the kind of luck you get. The partner you get is the kind of luck you get. Or the lack thereof, like with me. And yeah, all I wanted was a few things in this life. I wanted some kind of hobby or job or work that came to fruition, so I could have a comfortable life, to have my own space, to have a band, preferably, and get to have a songwriter's role within that, and to have a good partnership and a good house to live. So I don't have much of any of that, except for some kind of little musical projects that aren't like super active right now. So yeah, it's like this world is very slowed down. Everything takes so long. Yeah, slowed down. There's another word for that I'm not gonna. But it is. We learn the same. I've learned the same thing so many times, and I got to the point because I came into this world with a sense of reverence and humility, where I was like, I don't know what's going on. I will trust those that seem to know. And then you find out, I'm like, it's all just a sham. Like, no one knows, and they're making all kinds of horrible decisions that like they aren't even aware of. So I got to the point, I'm like, I became a bit more shrewd, I guess, with like existentially shrewd. I was like, okay, so why are we going through the same type of experiences? This is starting to feel exploitive. But I bet you what's going to be revealed are other beings who have been working here. It's like basically the ones facilitating all this, the ones putting this production on, and that it's this future production, this featured production, this featured production involves all of us, but there is a crew, there's a casting crew out there, maybe not filming us, but nudging things along, or what's the word, initiating things, maybe, like getting things going, like making the special tiny connection in someone's day that changed their whole life, the one conversation with a stranger. But to me, it's just so hard for me to not believe that there's other people. Well, I just call them people. Like anyone that's a being that makes choices, that has a sovereign autonomy. To me, it's just another person, whether they're an alien or interdimensional being, or like from the Pleiades. Like, to me, they're just other people. They're just in a different spaceship. I call these spaceships. I mean, we're moving through space. We're also time traveling. We're just going at a consistent rate forward. I was thinking about this. I was like, and this is a total like stoner thought, but I was like, maybe time is just space. because space is where time happens. But I'm sure someone with more logic around the knowledge of the nature of those things will correct me on that. And I'm not like dogmatic on those views at all, but I just feel like they're so intimately entwined, like space and time, because you need space to have time, otherwise nothing can happen, right? Or I can't conceive of things happening in a place where there's no space. But maybe there can. I don't know. Anyways, I'm just pontificating. I like hypotheticals. And I can't seem to help but like those things. Sometimes I wish I could turn it off. I'm like overthinking, basically. But it's not always painful and causing any consternation. It's not always sometimes it comes from a place of wonder, of fascination, and I want to procure more of that wonder, not just in myself but in people around me, because this jaded kind of vibe, it's a buzzkill. It's killing the felt presence that we would rather have as we move through this space. And to be one in a state of wonder or fascination, it's a beautiful, pure, childlike perspective, instead of just expecting the insipid, predictable things that keep happening. Guilty. But I recognize that, and I'm I want to move forward without those predictable, disappointing things perpetuating. And the cycle will be broken. At some point, I know our lives are going to completely change. It's whether it be when we pass into the next realm or something being revealed here that's happening. Because I'm not the only one that has had these thoughts. This goes way back in Gnosticism with the Demiurge and the first Archon being Yaldabaoth, who was the creation of Sophia. And Yaldabaoth was the first Archon and had other Archons and was born out of ignorance and was kind of the archetype of what narcissism is, but also kind of a synonymous being with the God of the Old Testament, which is probably heresy to fundamentalist Christians. But the Gnostic Gospels, the other ones, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and Thomas, and the secret teachings of John, I'm not sure if that's the name of the book, but they talk about the Archons and the Demiurge. And that goes, it makes sense why they didn't put it in the canon, because it kind of pierces holes through the more fundamentalist ideations of there being only one God and then there's the devil. But wouldn't it make sense if a master deceiver like the devil paints themselves as God, saying there is no other, I am the only one, and I am a jealous God, which Yaldabaoth really made a mistake in saying that, because if you're jealous, what are you jealous of if there's no other gods, Anyways, that's all in the Old Testament as well. And the only reason I know this is because I was brought up a fundamentalist Christian and had all that stuff firmly embedded into my psyche at an early age. And it's taken a while to deconstruct that, instead of my world being dictated by this belief of this ultimatum of heaven or hell, which hell could just be a state of mind. It could just be here. It might not be a physical place. Except for in a duality. In a duality, if heaven exists, it would make sense that a hell would exist, the polar opposite. And I'll tell you, on an off branch, my experience with Kratom is polarized. Now that I start doing it every day, in the mornings, I feel the I feel the physical withdrawals, and it's this lonely, distant feeling, but I know it's the withdrawals, and it's not insufferable. It's not like I'm in insufferable pain, but I'm like, oh, this is what I have to contend with when I have a more balanced state. Like, I would love to achieve on the natural just a balanced state of being, orientation and felt presence of being. That is something I would consent to and choose to. And the only reason I've allowed substances into my life again is because I went through a state of celibacy and not doing any psychotropic substances, thinking that I could attain a good, consistent balance without anything. Well, I went through so much depression in that, thinking I'd finally break through, but it almost kept getting worse over the years, to the point where I'm like, this is insufferable. And it actually humbled me to the point where I'm like, I will accept plant medicines. I will accept any help that the earth in this place can bring me, even though like a lot of medications and help have a duality to them here. And I am doing my best to be balanced and not slipping into the extremes of duality, but riding the ridge of consistency and simplicity and balance, equilibrium. And I just speak to these things. I speak about the presence of the other and whatever influences happen in our life. Like these attractors that we have that attract us to different things and different aesthetics of being. It's good to ask questions about that. Like, what is that? Like, what causes an attractor? Because that is where we choose our path in life. And if we were attracted to different things, it would go a whole different way. And maybe it's just our uniqueness that attracts us to certain things. But I think there is also what I would describe as a seductiveness that happens here. Kind of a seductiveness. And there's scams all in this world. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as above, so below, if you were brought up a certain way and your parents are a certain way, there's a certain knowledge of choices and being that happen. And if there's exploitation going on at a more fundamental level, then all the exploitation happening here could just be a microcosm of that. What's happening in the bigger picture. So I think there's beings out there helping us and keeping us safe and trying to just help us through our journeys. But then there's these other beings, I think, that are basically energy vampires, and I've talked about them. And I think all that will be revealed one day. Whether or not anyone watches my videos. And I know there's a few of you watching my videos, and I very much appreciate the time you take to listen to me. I just want to have more conversations around these existential modes of being, this ontology, the nature of our being, and asking those fundamental questions of what are we doing here, who put us here, how do we get through, how do we break through the barriers that are limiting our perceptions, which is limiting our choices, because if we can perceive more, we can make more specific, precise, elegant choices for the paths that we want to take in life. Anyway, it's already 14 and a half minutes. So I'll let that be. And I'd love to hear your comments on it. I love nuanced viewpoints. So let me have it.